Today on the show, the chaos and confusion on both sides of the political fence is causing us to think about who we are, and that's a good thing.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on
So
the
if you
radio.
have always been a straight ticket voter, if you come from a long line of straight ticket voters, if you are someone who has always felt secure in the knowledge that you are either A, a Republican, or B, a Democrat, it's a bit of an itchy time. It's a time where people start to question and wonder where things are going. The fact that Donald Trump is president is a fact that did not sit well with a lot of Republicans. You know, the whole never Trump thing. Although a lot of never Trumpers have sort of become sometimes Trumpers because as much as you might have a problem with the things that he says and does and tweets, he's been surprisingly consistently conservative when it comes to policy. Like, remove the bluster, the orangeness, the unfettered late night tweeting from the equation, and you got a guy who has surprised people by being a little bit more staunchly conservative and a little bit more predictably conservative than a lot of people thought he would be. I mean, Donald Trump was a Republican for about a second and a half before he announced his candidacy. But there's a bit of an identity crisis on the right, although when you won, you're a little less likely to rock the boat, even if the boat's an uncomfortable place to be. If you are a Democrat, boy, these are different, interesting, and troubling times. These are times where you really start to question who you are and what your party is about. And as much as this might be itchy and uncomfortable and cause for a lot of soul searching, I got to tell you, it might be a good thing. You and I have talked about this once or twice on the show before, but I remember talking to my dad about the first election he remembered. And that was Kennedy. And I remember talking to him about what the Kennedy election was like. And, well, picture what you know the Democratic Party to be. Picture what your stereotypical vision of a Democrat is in 2019. Now, John F. Kennedy was a member of a significantly different party of Democrats. John F. Kennedy was part of a Democratic Party that was, among many other things, synonymous with the KKK. It's not like every Democrat was in the Klan, but every Klansman was definitely a Democrat. And because of that, John F. Kennedy had a problem. He had a problem because he needed the black vote. I know. It's insane, right? When you think about what being a Democrat means now and what a Democrat meant being back then. But nevertheless, perception of what it was to be a Democrat changed when John F. Kennedy secured the black vote by helping to get Martin Luther King out of prison. Got him out of the clink, got him out of the pokey. And just like that, changed the identity of what it was to be a Democrat and changed the allegiances of people that were part of the KKK. Like I said, though, it was a very different party that JFK was a part of when he was seeking to be elected president. Just to drive that point home, not every Democrat was a Klansman, but every Klansman was a Democrat. And I bring this up, and I bring it up over and over again to illustrate a very important point. That is how much the identity of a political party has changed in one person's lifetime. That was a conversation I had with my dad about what he remembered with regard to politics growing up. So, this blindly swearing allegiance to a political party because that's what your family has always done, this blind allegiance of being straight ticket anything is not really something that serves anyone other than a politician. A politician wants to be able to count on your vote without having to take the time to explain themselves to you. A politician wants to be able to hold out their hand and get a campaign donation. A politician wants to know that you're going to show up and pull the lever of democracy without them having to work for it. That's why they love it when you vote straight ticket something or other. Makes their life so much easier. Makes their campaign finance dollar that they just got from you go so much further. Whether you're on the right or the left, it behooves them to just be able to count on your vote without having to work for it, without having to prove themselves for it, without having to convince you of their worth. And like I said, it's a confusing time. It's a confusing time to be straight ticket anything. It's a confusing time to be anything other than open-minded. It's a confusing time to be someone that goes through life with blinders on. The only thing you can do is keep your eyes and ears open and take each individual that is asking for your vote as they come. The right's kind of confused. The right's a little more stable because the right, has the upper hand. The right has a president in the White House. But the right is still divided. We've become more and more extreme. And as much as people bemoan that this never happened before, well, it has. We're basically a little bit of history repeating at the moment. Anytime there's a massive economic downturn, there's massive political division because everybody loses their job, their house, their car, their wife, their kids, their whatever, and comes out of it going, I'm broke, my life is ruined, I need someone to blame, must be their fault. And they point across the aisle. And a politician goes, that's right, it is their fault. But if you vote for me next time, we'll show them. So the divide, like I said, is a bit of history repeating. It's embarrassing that we as a society do all the same things over again, learning little to nothing from the folly of our forefathers. But that's exactly what's going on. We're divided and we're extreme. And that causes divides among the political parties. I mean, you got the expression rhino. Republican in name only. What? You vaguely agree with something a Democrat once said once? You feel like someone that views things differently or voted differently than you might have a point that's worth listening to? You Republican in name only. You rhino. Get back over to the left, you big freaking phony sellout. Hey, everybody, look at the phony. Look at the phony. Why don't you get your red coat on and go back to saluting the Queen of England? Because that's what you'd really like, to give this country back to the Brits. I mean, I only exaggerate a little bit. But it's where we're at. The right is divided, not as much as the left, though. Because, well, the right has the galvanizing benefit, of having won the last election. They've got a person in the White House. And as uncomfortable as that might be for some people, as much as a lot of people on the right were never Trumps, that are now sometimes Trumps, it makes them a little bit more stable. It's the left. It's the left and the growing sentiment that we got to be worried about an anti-Semitic threat within the left that has really made people reconsider things. Sounds horrible. Think it could work out for the positive. We'll get into why next.
Real radio. 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So, chaos, confusion, division, all sounds horrible. But you know what? As much as I don't like the state of the world, as much as I don't like the way people are griping and sniping at each other constantly, as much as I don't like the fact that people are failing to recognize that we're on the same team because we're all indeed Americans, as much as I don't like any of that, I do think a little bit of what's going on right now could be healthy. Why? Because it makes people question who they are and what they stand for. It's not as simple as it used to be. It's not as simple as saying I'm a Republican. It's not as simple as saying I'm a Democrat. And there's all these messy, sloppy divisions. You hear all these people on the right that say, well, I'm a Tea Party type. I'm a libertarian. I could never vote for any kind of establishment Republicans or any kind of rhino, any Republican in name only. A pox on them and their houses. So it's a little less clean cut. Like I said, the right is a bit more stable because, well, they won. And as much as that victory might have been an uneasy thing for the never Trumpers or the sometimes Trumpers, it's still nice to win. And Donald Trump, if you remove all the parts of his personality and his actions that you find objectionable from the situation, he has been surprisingly down the line conservative with his policy stuff. So that's a little bit of a security blanket to a person on the right that's questioning where their allegiances lie. On the left, it's getting really, really messy. On the left, it's getting really, really messy. Well, for a bunch of different reasons. There's a whole Bernie Hillary thing, and, there's a whole Bernie whoever the hell else it is thing now. There's the Beto whoever else it is thing now. There's the idea that if you are a white male, in no way, shape, or form are you an appropriate candidate to be president. Because how on earth could you understand anything about anything? Beto O'Rourke was a golden child when he was up against Ted Cruz. When he lost, everyone went, oh, good, fantastic. That means he can run for president, Beto 2020. But then some people started saying, nah, you know what? Based on the color of his skin and what he's got going on south of the equator, he will not be our next president. He's entirely too white. He's entirely too male. He's entirely too privileged to speak for us. Hell no. Beto, don't go. Or whatever it is people have been saying. So that's interesting. And then, there's a lot of people on the left that think Bernie absolutely messed with the program. A lot of people on the left that go, oh, the horror that is Trump. Had Bernie not been taking votes away from Hillary, well, then we'd be looking at a very different situation in the White House now. And then there's a lot of people that said Hillary was lazy and ineffective and didn't campaign in the Midwest and she lost it all. And had Bernie been there, things would have been very different. So there's that hangover of a divide from the last election cycle. There's the idea that if you are going to be the Democratic nominee for president of these United States of America, you must not be white and you must not be male. Because, hey, time's up and all of the above. And look, I'm not trying to trivialize the idea that people of color, people that are not male, have been largely underrepresented in the White House. That's silly and it's shameful, and we should have gotten past that a very long time ago. To me, the idea of a female political leader is not an alien thing whatsoever because I grew up in England. When I moved to England when I was a little kid, Margaret Thatcher was in charge. And the idea that England, who are not usually ahead of America in too many respects, could have been so far ahead of America in terms of that, to the point where America still hasn't gotten there, is beyond me. But I've had female political leaders. And I was a little kid at the time, but it was no big to me, and still is no big to me. But I understand why some people would feel like, oh man, we haven't had this, we haven't had that, we need to get there. And you know what? I agree. But that can't be the issue that sends you to the White House. I really hope that someone who is the very best for the job, that checks all of these boxes, is elected to every single office it's possible to be elected to in the not too distant future, so that we can do away with the foolishness that is the politics of identity, and that these shameful issues of race and color and all of the above can truly become a thing of the past, the way they were in England many, many years ago, and in many other parts of the world many, many years ago. It's silly that we're not there yet. But what gets really, really interesting on the left And this is something you're going to start hearing a lot more about moving forward, is the growing concern of anti-Semitism on the left. Now, the linchpin for all of this is a conflict in the Middle East. Over and over and over again on the right, you're going to hear people say, friend of Israel, supporter of Israel. And there is a certain religious allegiance there. First and foremost, Israel and people of the Jewish faith in general have never hijacked a plane load full of Americans and killed thousands of people in the name of Judaism. In our personal history, that has just not happened. So there's a lot of folks that think, hey, we've got real allies in Israel. And you know what? They're allies because we're both of a Judeo-Christian faith. Stereotypically speaking, the people of Israel and the people of America, the predominant religions, are part of the Judeo-Christian infrastructure. Meanwhile, on the left, a place where, generally speaking, if you are of the Jewish faith, you're hanging out. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the vast majority of Jewish people that I've known in my lifetime have been Democrats. Your safe place is troubled. The Democratic Party has always been a safe place for people of the Jewish faith. The Democratic Party, in many ways, has always been a safe place for people of any faith. That was a whole sort of bit of sociological and moral upper hand that they had over the right. People on the right got very Christian right around the time of Ronald Reagan. We're a Christian nation. We believe in God. And, well, the church has a whole lot to do with how we vote and what we think and blah, blah, blah. We think America is for people of this faith. Whereas the left always had, like I said, the ideological high ground of being able to say, America is for everyone. America is for everyone of every faith. And America does not discriminate against people of different faiths. Well, things are getting a little weird. Things are getting a little weird on the left, specifically with what's been going on with Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. You've been following this? Look, any kind of hint of anti-Semitism that exists in America has no place in America, and it should be stamped out. But I think we can benefit from what's going on right now because it's making people ask very real and very sensible questions about who we are and what we stand for.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
So there's a problem. There is a question of identity that must be asked. Because that secure, safe place that was the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, it doesn't exist as you and I knew it 5-10 years ago. Things are not so cut and dry. Things are not so clean. Things are not so easily defined. Extremism, as is the historical norm after a massive fiscal downturn like the one we're still coming out of, extremism has been a thing and a growing thing over the last several years. Just a few election cycles back, Hillary Clinton said, I think gay people are great, and I certainly don't hold their gayness against them, but, marriage is defined as between a man and a woman, and, well, gay people shouldn't be allowed to get married. The words of Hillary Clinton. I say that to illustrate a point. Now, anything like that coming from any direction that is even vaguely associated with the left would be scorned and burned to the ground. But we're living in a day and age where you got to be all the way left. You got to be all the way right. You have to take an extreme side to get any kind of traction in 2019, which is too bad. Because the kind of centrist perspective where you, respect the opinions of people that think differently than you, will go a long way toward us all evolving and getting where we want to go together. But it's just what we're dealing with right now. It's just the nature of the world. Look at Nike. Generally speaking, large businesses would have steered away from any kind of political controversy, not wanting to alienate half of their target audience, half of their buying public, half of the sneakers that they were looking to sell. They didn't just blindly decide, hey, you know what? What Kaepernick did, we like that. We're going to support that. No. They did millions of dollars of market research over many years and thought, it would be to our detriment to not take a side in this. So we're going to side with Kaepernick. That's a decision we've made because we think it's fiscally prudent. Trust me, Nike are not in the business of equality. Nike are in the business of sneakers and money. So I bring that up because it's a really good indicator of the time that we're in. You stand to lose if you don't take a side. If you don't take a side that alienates a large chunk of the rest of the world, then you stand to lose. There's people that say, you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Get off the fence. Rah! And, what if what you want to stand for is common ground and getting along with each other? No, it's not good enough. It's sort of a self-destructive thing that we're in right now, and we will upwardly spiral out of it eventually, but it's going to take some time. Now, back to what's going on with Ilhan Omar. This is what's given the Democrats their identity crisis at the moment. She is part of a growing voice within the Democratic Party that is questioning the actions of Israel in the Middle East. There's an interesting place where accusations of Zionism meet accusations of anti-Semitism. And that is where the Democratic Party is right now. Especially as the right continues to proclaim blind support of Israel because of our Judeo-Christian ties with them. There's going to be some pushback on the left saying, if the right's saying Israel's cool, we're going to say not so much. And, well, the Democratic Party had, for the longest time, been the statistical home of people of the Jewish faith. And now there's growing concerns of anti-Semitism on the left. Some Jewish Democratic members of Congress have run out of patience with Ilhan Omar and what people perceive as her anti-Semitism. She said some stuff that it's very difficult to not perceive as anti-Semitism in the past. If you ask me, just me going back through her tweets, I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. When people say she's anti-Semitic, I don't have a hard time understanding why they say that. But some Jewish Democratic members of Congress have run out of patience with her. And Democrats are going after her for saying that Jewish lawmakers have dual loyalty to both Israel and the U.S. Yeah, that's what she said. Jewish American lawmakers, she's saying, are loyal to Israel as well as the U.S. New York Democratic Rep Nita Lowey wrote in response to Omar's dual loyalty comments, gross Islamophobia stereotypes like those that Ilhan Omar recently featured are offensive and have no place in political discourse. Anti-Semitic tropes that accuse Jews of dual loyalty are equally painful and must also be roundly condemned. Another New York Democrat congressman, a guy called Elliot Engel, demanded that Omar apologize for her vile anti-Semitic slur. See, what she's accusing Jewish lawmakers of by saying that they have dual loyalty to Israel and to America is essentially treason. She's saying because of their Jewish faith, they're engaging in an act of treason. Michigan Democratic Rep Ted Deutsch responded, writing, "Dual loyalty, Jews proudly serve our country. I serve in the U.S. House. My father served in the U.S. Army. As a Jewish soldier, he was given this book before fighting the Nazis on the battlefields of Europe. We are proud, loyal Americans. Shabbat Shalom." Omar responded to the criticism saying, "I am told every day that I am anti-American if I am not pro-Israel. I find that to be problematic, and I am not alone. I just happen to be willing to speak up on it and open myself to attacks." Now, where does this leave us? Besides in a place where there's all sorts of infighting on the side of the left that are going to make the primaries a very interesting place indeed. Well, look, it leaves us questioning. It leaves us questioning our identities. That security blanket of knowing who we were, or at least feeling like we knew who we were because of the way we voted, that security blanket is slowly being shredded and disintegrated. And you know what? There's some ugly things that are coming out in the process. But I got to tell you, I'm sort of for it. Not for anti-Semitism, not for any of what we've been talking about. But I'm into the idea of us questioning who we are. I'm into the idea of us questioning what it means to vote. I'm into the idea of questioning the meaning behind the party that is asking for our vote that we eventually pull the lever of democracy for. The two-party system, registering as a Republican or a Democrat. This has been, in my humble or not so humble opinion, a defunct way of going through life for a very, very long time. More or less since the dawn of America. The idea of identifying yourself by a political party has been kind of a pointless and stupid thing. And it brings us back to a place where, like I said, I think we're questioning who we are and what it means to be a part of a party. And that's good. But more importantly, I hope it moves us a little closer to divorcing ourselves from the idea of a party. I hope it moves us closer to a point where we can look at a candidate and go, you know what? Let's forget about the R or the D. What are they saying? What do they think? What do they feel? How are they planning to serve us? How will this impact my life? And this becomes especially pertinent at a local level. The presidential election, well, there's a very good chance that's the election that's going to affect you the least. You get involved in a local level. You get involved in a person that you can look in the eyes. You get involved with a candidate that is living in your town, sharing a similar way of life with you, regardless of whether they're running with an R or a D next to their name. They're going to be a little bit more in touch with your existence for entirely too long, Americans have been allowing politicians to define them by their terms. You're a lot more interesting. You've got a lot more to offer than saying, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm right, I'm left. For the longest time, we've been allowing ourselves to be defined on the politicians' terms. It's time we start defining ourselves on our own terms.
Now, more AD on the radio.
So I was vegan for a really, really long time, and I had dinner with an old friend the other night. And we hadn't seen each other in a while, and I don't think we'd broken bread together in a little while. I mean, we talk, we text, we message back and forth. But as far as sitting down and eating a meal together, we hadn't done that in a little bit. And I was vegan for 12, 13 years. And I ordered the fish. And he went, hold up, you're not vegan? I was like, no. He was like, man, I really wish you were still vegan. I was like, why? What difference does it make to you? You're not vegan. Do you care? Like, have you become vegan? Did we switch dietary places at this table? And he was like, no. But when you were vegan, you were low key about it. You didn't introduce yourself as a vegan. You didn't talk about being a vegan. You didn't sort of expect other people to be vegan and adhere to this sort of lifestyle that you existed in. And I got to tell you, back when I was wow, I sound like a crotchety old vegan now. But back in the day when I was a vegan, it was difficult. Now it's freaking easy. Oh my gosh, if you want to be vegan or vegetarian, literally everywhere has a menu option for you. I was vegan when I was a teenage kid in a band on tour. You know what you eat when you're a teenage kid in a band on tour? Literally whatever's available, what's ever put in front of you. There was a time when, I remember, this goes down in rock history, but we had this booking agent. And part of the contract that they would send out, and this was when the band was in England, was our food rider. Meaning, hey, we're going to come and play a show. We're going to need dinner. And I remember that there was how many of us? There's 6 of us. So there's this one, 2 crew members, us as the band, our driver, our roadie, and part of our tour rider, part of our contract was that there would be 6 quality meals, 3 of which must be vegetarian, 1 of which must be vegan. 1 vegan quality meal. That was for me. I was the only vegan in the band. And I remember just showing up, and the definition of a quality meal could have been hotly debated after the food arrived. There was one time where it just showed up and it was a plate of potatoes with nothing on it. They were baked potatoes with nothing. Zip, zing, nada. That was my vegan quality meal. Now, like I said, I don't mean to sound old and crotchety, but back in my day when I was a vegan, it sucked. That's when you could be, a guy with a song on the charts, which I was, show up, have your booking agent, who you paid a commission to, demand a quality meal from the promoter, and you got a pile of potatoes, and that was it. And when I sat with my friend, he was like, I wish you would have been a vegan because, well, you did it the right way. You didn't shove it in everybody's face. You didn't make a big deal of it. You recognized that it was your choice and, well, you didn't advertise the fact, and nor did you let it define you. You just ate your potatoes and shut the hell up. I was like, I did eat my potatoes that night, and I did shut the hell up. I did talk to our agent about it. Nothing ever got done, but oh well. It is what it was, I suppose. Nowadays, it's so freaking easy. Like, there's a vegetarian or a vegan option literally everywhere you go. There's a gluten-free option wherever you go. And, well, it seems like the easier it gets, the more people want to talk about it like it's not.
My friend wanted to get lunch recently, but she's like, I'm vegan now. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go with that whole thing. I was like, do you want to go to Cafe Gratitude? It's a vegan restaurant in LA. And she was like, well, I'm also gluten-free, so can we go to the juice bar? And I was like, how about we just never speak again? And she got a tattoo of a hummingbird she was really proud of. She's like, Erica, I just got a new tattoo of a hummingbird. Do you know what hummingbirds represent? And I was like, no, but I bet you're going to tell me. She's like, they represent change. And I was like, interesting. You know what doesn't usually represent change? Tattoos. Not a big symbol of change.
The brilliant observations of one Erica Rhodes on vegans and tattoos. All right, then, let's you and I get into the events of today in our segment, My Witness News. Anytime someone who has been in the media decides they're going to run for some sort of political office, I always get the screaming heebie-jeebies. Only because I work with people in the media, and I know what type of person you are if you're in TV news or radio news or something like that. You're one of me and my people, and we are folks that might be really good at observing. We might be folks that are really good at entertaining. We might be folks that are good at a lot of things that are of value to some people. But we are not people who should be trusted with any kind of reins, control, or power, as evidenced by, well, these local news anchors. Yeah.
You have to be really careful out there.
You do. We've had six consecutive days of rain. Did I?
Okay. All right. That was a Freudian slip, but we're going to pretend like we didn't hear it.
I can't gonna lose it now. Listen. It's cold outside. That's what I have to say, Tony. And it's not raining. That's the good news. Freeze warnings in effect. That's why it's so cold. Listen, it's going to be Tony, I blame you.
But the cost for her services range from $7,500 to $30,000. But it could be worth it. She has an 80% success rate.
Oh, that's pretty good. 80% success. Oh. Freudian slip. Success rate. Yikes. Hello, Internet. That's going on there. Let's just move on, shall we? Can we please move on, Reba? I'll move on here. If you're single and ready to mingle, golly.
Did you see this? A 60-year-old man in New York faked his own kidnapping last week. Why? Well, he wanted to avoid paying his Super Bowl Squares debt. Yeah, true story. He told cops he'd been tied up in his truck and robbed. Turns out the Super Bowl Squares poll he was running was a scam. Most of the names in the pool were fake, and he was trying to take all the money, but real people in the pool actually won, and he couldn't afford to pay them the $50,000 that he owed. So, yeah, here's a state trooper on why they saw through his story.
You have a man that's been abducted for 2 days at gunpoint, a large amount of money taken from him. He doesn't seem to be emotionally distraught, maybe upset about this. You know, it's almost like business as usual. You get a guy that's been in a pickup truck for 2 days, he looks relatively clean, and then you dive into his story a little bit deeper, and what you realize is all this stuff is made up.
Alrighty then, that is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spend together, it's the best part of my day every single day. Have yourself a great evening. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do this all over again. If you want to weigh in or converse about any of the things we've been talking about, and either on or off the air, hit me up at ADSXE is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, or email me, ad@iheartradio.com. Later.